Hello everyone, my name is Sanorita. Today I'm going to talk to you about our paper, Reimagining the Power of Priming and Framing Effects in the Context of Political Crowdfunding Campaigns. This work is done in collaboration with Professor Brittany Duff and Professor Karahalios at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Gathering funding for election campaigns is critical for a politician to win the election. Historically, politicians in the United States have used many different mediums for collecting their funds, such as self-funding, large individual donations, PACs, and small donations. Recently, in the last few years, a new medium has gained a lot of popularity, which is crowdfunding. I'm sure that you all have heard the term crowdfunding in many different contexts. So how does it work for election campaigns? Let me explain it with a simple example. This is how a typical political crowdfunding campaign looks like. The candidates mention the position that they're running for. Then they set up a goal that they would like to receive as donations from these campaigns. And most importantly, they tell us a story where they talk about their priorities, their agendas, their future goals, and so on. Basically, they try to explain why people should donate to them and ultimately why they should vote for them. Now, in these campaigns, politicians talk about many highly sensitive and politically charged topics that might trigger partisan identities among the audience. And this is just a small set of such topics. In our paper, we ask the question, like when the audience gets exposed to such campaigns, whether and how their opinions toward these politically charged topics get primed. Now, what do we mean by the term priming? Priming is a concept in behavioral psychology where exposure to a specific stimulus might influence reactions and responses to future stimuli without users' conscious intention. This is just an example of priming. If someone gets exposed to a list of words such as bread, juice, and milk, and after that, if they're asked to fill in the blanks, they will probably guess the word soup, not soap, although both are correct. We can explain this behavior as the priming effect. Now let's get back to our research question. What can we do to verify if these political crowdfunding campaigns have any priming effect? For that, we conducted a user study. We hired people from Amazon Mechanical Turk, and then we asked them to take a political typology quiz, just to determine whether they are leaning toward conservative ideology or liberal ideology. Once we knew that, we divided them into two groups. The first group read a political crowdfunding campaign that was inconsistent to their own ideology. That means someone who was leaning toward conservative ideology read a campaign for a politician affiliated with the Democratic Party, and vice versa. The second group was the control group, who read a simple charitable crowdfunding campaign, which was not at all related to politics. They all completed a survey where they answered how convincing and persuasive the material was to them. And that was the end of the first phase. Now we conducted the second phase 10 days later when the same group of people were exposed to two charitable campaigns. In one campaign, it supported the climate change movement, such as restoring forests, whereas the second campaign explained how such movements are destroying jobs for certain communities, such as coal miners. So basically, one campaign was pro-climate change movement, and the other one was anti-climate change movement. In the end, each participant completed two surveys, one for each campaign, where they expressed their opinion toward these campaigns. Now let's see what we have found. In both phase 1 and phase 2, we used 4 parameters to capture the opinions of the participants: persuasiveness, empathy, sense of community, and comfort level. In all 4 parameters, participants who read the crowdfunding campaigns rated their materials low in comparison to the control group, which makes sense, right? Because all participants who read a political campaign were rating a politician whom they didn't support fundamentally because of their own political ideology. So far, so good. Now, let's see if this act would have any effect on these participants in phase 2 when they didn't see anything about a politician. Rather, they saw campaigns about pro and anti-climate change movements. This graph is for the conservative participants. Conservative participants who saw a political crowdfunding campaign in phase 1 rated their pro-climate change campaign significantly low than the other campaigns. And we didn't observe this effect for the control group. We saw the same trend for liberal participants. The liberal group who was exposed to a political campaign in phase 1 rated the anti-climate change campaign low than anyone else. These results indicate that there was a certain level of priming effect among the participants of the political crowdfunding group that influenced their ratings for the charitable campaigns even after 10 days. Once we observe this priming effect, next we ask the obvious follow-up question. Is there a way to mitigate this priming effect? It turned out there are at least 2 types of framing techniques to do that. The first one is the threat versus safety framing technique, and the second one is the schema framing technique. For the sake of time, today we'll only talk about the first one. In the paper, we talked about both of them with examples. It has been found that conservative people get triggered by the sense of threat, whereas liberal people get triggered by the sense of safety. However, if we switch these triggers, that means if we convey a sense of safety through our message to conservative people, they may behave like a liberal person for a certain period of time. Similarly, with a sense of threat trigger, a liberal person may behave like a conservative person. So we took this strategy, we ran the same user study again, but with a twist. This time, when we showed the charitable campaigns to our participants, for the conservative participants, we framed the pro-climate change campaign statement to reflect a sense of safety. Similarly, we changed the statement of the anti-climate change campaign also using the threat framing technique, but only for the liberal participants. So let's see what we have found after applying these framing techniques. We did find that these techniques helped our participants to overcome the priming effect. This time, participants who read the modified campaigns rated them significantly higher than the previous study. However, those who read the unmodified version still showed the priming effect and rated their corresponding campaigns low. So to summarize, we found that political crowdfunding campaigns might have priming effect on the viewers on politically charged topics. However, this priming effect can be mitigated using various forms of framing techniques. Thank you for listening. Please reach out with any questions.